The EU. My God. If only the people knew what this institution is really all about, there would be a revolution by tomorrow morning in every country within the bloc. They are the modern day mafia, pure and simple. And we know what Cameron's position on the EU is. He's made it virtually impossible for there to be a referendum by making the parameters for a referendum to happen so unrealistic that he may as well say, sorry, you're staying in the EU because my paymasters, the Rothschilds, say so. Ed Spittyband and his Fabian Society members have also said they will not allow an EU referendum. And Nick Clegg, well, who gives a flying fuck what this yes man says? After all, he's only polling about 7% now. Clegg is completely and utterly irrelevant. He just hasn't realised it yet. Now, I'd like to say the leaders of the three main parties, but that would obviously now include Nigel Farage and UKIP, as they're polling way, way higher than the amoeba Clegg. So, I will say this. 3 of the 4 leaders of the main 4 parties in the UK all want us to have more integration into the EU. They want us to have more ties to the EU, more power shifted from Whitehall to Brussels, more unelected bureaucrats ruling us. As I've said before, if the EU that's being structured was all about fairness, sweetness and light, then maybe I would be for it. But this is not what the EU is about. It is openly becoming the new USSR, filled with fraud. Did you know that the budget for the EU has now not been signed off for 19 years because of fraud? Look at this article if you don't believe me. Auditors refuse to give the EU accounts a clean bill of health for the 19th year in a row as the rate of unexplained spending rises 23%, with UK liable for 800 million. British taxpayers will have to pay more than 800 million after the European Union spent nearly 6 billion in error last year. Auditors yesterday refused to sign off the EU accounts for the 19th year in succession as they revealed that the spending errors are 23% up on the year before. While countries across Europe are forced to rein in spending, EU bosses paid out 5.7 billion to ineligible projects, of which Britain's share is 832 million. The EU is a corrupt cesspit, far from the propaganda of job creations, wealth creation and prosperity that 3 of the 4 leaders of the main parties spew constantly. From the outset, the EU was all about political union. The outcome has always been to create a United States of Europe, and to do this without the people knowing. They wanted to increase the power of the EU by treaty changes, one after another, each one handing more and more power to the EU, and all without the people knowing about it. Sounds like democracy at its best, doesn't it? You don't believe me? Then you simply aren't informed. I'm sorry to have to say that, but that's the truth. I suggest you read this book for background on how this was done. It's an excellent read and it will open your eyes about the institution so loved by Cameron, Spittyband and Clegg. So, while the world has been focusing on the missing plane, on the 21st of March, the EU struck a deal on legislation to create a single agency to handle failing banks and bail-ins in the Eurozone. Did you hear that? To handle failing banks and bail-ins in the Eurozone. You remember what a bail-in is, don't you? Remember the bail-in that happened in Cyprus? Do you remember now? Come on, I know we've had a lot to think about since then, like Justin Bieber getting arrested, Katy Perry's satanic performance, and we've had the Oscars and that selfie. But surely you remember the bail-in that took place in Cyprus, where the banks in Cyprus closed and people had a large percentage of their savings stolen and given to the banks, without the depositors having a say in the matter. Well, this is a bail-in, i.e. shut your account, have the banks take a large percentage, i.e. steal your money, and this is now becoming the norm in the Eurozone. And don't think this won't come to the UK, because it is just a matter of time. And when it happens, we will hear from Cameron every day that this is the only option available to us and that it's the right thing to do, and that it's patriotic to let the Rothschilds steal your money openly? Do I have to remind you that these bankers that will need bailing out have taken billions in bonuses? And now, when the next financial crash happens that is far worse than the previous one, and it's a certainty that it will happen, the too big to fails will be even bigger, meaning they will still not be allowed to fail. So in order to save the taxpayers from having to bail out these gambling scumbags, the banks, via the government, will simply close your account for the weekend, take a large percentage of cash from each of its depositors, and then reopen, without you being able to do anything about it. And this is the bit I love. The money they steal, because that's what it is, will go to the very bankers that caused the issue in the first place. The very bankers that got billions in bonuses over the years while you and I got chicken feed at best. And I can guess what the people will do after this. Nothing. Because we adapt as human beings to what's thrown at us, and the elite know this. Oh, for sure you'll moan and say that it's not fair for a while, but when the propaganda sinks in that you're being fired with every day, you'll learn to accept it. And you may even, in fact, begin to agree that the bail-in was the best thing to be done. It was doing the right thing after all. We can't see those bankers lose a penny now, can we? You see, the EU can get away with introducing legislation like this because the people in the EU are simply asleep. Just what is it going to take for you to get angry? What will it take for some raw emotion to bubble up within you and say, no, I've had enough. This is unjust and it will not happen in my name. Is it when they're raping your wife and kids in front of you? Where has our spirit gone? Why are we all such spineless zombies, just allowing the elite to run over us every chance they get without retaliation? Let me recap this for you nice and slowly. Unelected bureaucrats in the EU, bureaucrats that cannot be elected, removed, or held to account in any way, shape or form, have decided that when the next certain to happen financial collapse occurs, then the too big to fail banks will close your account, they will steal a large percentage of your savings to pay for the losses of those bankers and their next bonuses. And in the UK, Cameron, Spittyband and Clegg all want more integration with this mafia-run organisation. Only UKIP want out. The introduction of this legislation should be an open goal for UKIP, but will it be? Well, that's for us to decide. If this doesn't make you mad, then just carry on voting the way your parents did, because your mind has simply been lost forever. But if the thought of this makes you mad, then share this video, make people aware of what the Mafia EU gangsters are doing in your name. Clearly, we need to be as far away from the EU as possible, politically. Let's become like Switzerland, let's try something new and govern ourselves for a change. Let's be able to trade with the EU, but not be run like the likes of Barroso and Van Rompuy, who are only unelected mafia scum. Come on, people, please.